Hello and good morning to our UW community members here in Washington and around the world. I'm Jack Martin, Vice President for Marketing and Communications at the University of Washington, and to everyone here in Alder Hall Auditorium and everyone joining us online, welcome to the 2025 Provost Town Hall. As we begin, I want to note that Provost Tricia Serio will be taking questions at the conclusion of the Town Hall. For the sake of fairness between in-person and online attendees, we ask that anyone who has a question submit it to provost@uw.edu. Given our limited time today, Provost Serio will be the only one of our presenters to take questions. If you have a question for one of the speakers, you may also send that to provost@uw.edu, and our team will forward it on. And now, it is my pleasure to introduce Leanne Wiles, Executive Director of First Year Programs and the Robinson Center for Young Scholars here on the UW's Seattle campus, and Terry Hill, Director of Orientation and Transition Programs at UW Bothell. In their welcome remarks, Leanne and Terry will describe some of the ways their teams work with faculty, staff, and students across our three campuses to ensure that all UW students have welcoming spaces where they can gather and learn.
Good morning, everyone. It's an honor to be here with you all today. Leanne and I have the privilege of working and supporting new students as they transition into our universities, whether through orientation, peer coaching, learning communities, or welcome programs. Our work is about ensuring every new Husky feels a genuine sense of belonging and is provided with the resources to succeed. However, this work does not occur in isolation. We collaborate with exceptional staff, faculty, and student leaders across the campus, from academic advisors and student services personnel to the facilities teams who create inviting environments and for learning to take place. This work is not just about onboarding students to our individual campuses or to offices. It's about bringing them into the University of Washington as a whole, into a community that is bigger than any program or department or location. We're fortunate to have leaders who embody this spirit of connection, like Provost Serio, who has made it a personal commitment to get to know what makes the fabric of the university community, listening to their experiences, learning how to best support staff, faculty, and students. We also recognize the strength of our university lies in the connection between our three campuses, Bothell, Seattle, and Tacoma. While we're here today, we want to acknowledge and honor our colleagues at the UW-Tacoma who share in this important work. Although each campus has its unique identity, we know that we come together across campuses. We have the opportunity to learn from one another and build on the successes of our colleagues to better serve all students across the UW system.
Provost Serio is a visionary leader. She gathers and remembers data in a really unique way. So not just thinking about the numbers, but also uses stories. She uses data to drive decisions and daylight opportunities for connection across departments and units. Provost Serio's support of the UW Dialogue Initiative serves as a clear demonstration of her commitment to collaboration. The initiative builds upon existing efforts taking place on each campus to equip students with skills they need to navigate topics with curiosity, respect, and a commitment to understanding different perspectives. Harry and I are just two of the several staff that have been involved with this initiative. New students are engaging in meaningful and constructive conversations in a time when discussions about place and the importance of higher education are more critical than ever. That's why it means so much to us that the Provost has championed this work, not only recognizing its significance, but actively driving it forward. Under her guidance, we've been able to strengthen our programs, deepen our partnerships, and ensure that every new Husky arrives at the UW prepared to engage, to grow, and to thrive. So with that, please join us in welcoming a leader who has been instrumental in shaping our efforts, our Provost, Tricia Serio.
Thank you, Leanne and Terry, for that introduction, and importantly for your work with the Dialogue Initiative. It's really emblematic of the work that's happening all across the university to center our common humanity as we pursue excellence in our mission. I'll start by acknowledging the Coast Salish people of this land I stand on, land which touches the shared waters of all tribes and bands within the Suquamish, Tulalip, and Muckleshoot nations. Good morning and welcome to all, especially our students, staff, and faculty who are here today. Whether you're here in person, watching online, or watching later, I very much appreciate you and the time you've taken out of your day to be a part of this town hall. A special welcome to our regents, Harris and Rice, who are here with us today, and also Regents Walker and Fuller and Tamaki, who are watching online. I also want to thank President Kause for being here in person and all the senior leaders across the university who are in attendance today. Being in partnership with all of you is one of the true joys of my work, and I thank you all. Before I share my reflections on our academic mission, I want to start by recognizing the profound challenges facing our world today. From public health crises to social injustices to economic disparities, rapid changes and disruptions in the working of our federal government, environmental and immigration concerns, and war. And the different ways people experience and view that impact of all of those challenges. I certainly don't have the answer to these challenges, but I believe without a shadow of a doubt that the work that we do together at the University of Washington through teaching and learning, research and discovery, outreach and engagement, and patient care remain a vital part of creating a more informed, compassionate, and just society. Being a part of this community, even now, gives me hope for the future. Our mission is founded on the premise that merit, excellence, access, and opportunity are inseparable. I want to be clear. The University of Washington remains committed to this premise as core to our mission and to fostering innovative and diverse learning and working environments that support the success of every individual. Our commitment to this challenge is unwavering, even through change. We cannot lose sight of the fact that there is much within our control, and we must use that agency in every role all across the university to evolve how we preserve, advance, and disseminate knowledge. For 164 years, this university has advanced excellence in our mission within the constraints and opportunities of the day, and we must continue to find a way to do so now. While it may not always be visible, I want you to know that we are all continually planning and will make needed adjustments, but only at the right time and from an informed position. In thinking about my remarks today, I was inspired by the essay prompt for first-year applicants to the University of Washington. I don't know if you've looked at it, but it says, tell a story from your life, describing an experience that either demonstrates your character or helped to shape it. Felt like the application was speaking to me. This may be one of those moments for all of us who study and work at the University of Washington to demonstrate our character. I know that we are all here because we're committed to higher education as an essential path to progress. I believe that our character will lead us to strengthen this institution by doing what we do best, and that's bridging our divisions through nuanced understanding of complex issues. I commit to being in partnership with you, and I ask you to trust in our collective ability to do this important work together. And I want to set expectations. There is no single right answer. There is our answer, and we have to find it together and lead at a time when we may be one of the few institutions who can. Anis Barwarshi, a professor in English, recently mentioned to me the two definitions of the word articulate. To articulate means to express or communicate clearly, but it also means to link or connect. He pointed out to me that you can combine these two definitions into something interesting, which means that what we can express is a function of our connections to one another. His thoughts have really resonated with me, especially when I think about the work that Leanne and Terry and our colleagues are doing with students to connect dialogue to the idea that many people hold parts of effective solutions, right? And we all have to come together to make those viable. So this is the call that I make to each of us today. Do not cede our future by allowing our differences to interfere with progress. Instead, use those differences as a guide to make our mission more relevant to everyone. And we have to do that at a pace that matches the opportunities that are present in this moment. They may be different than they were a year ago, and they will be different than they are 5 years from now. Our opportunities must not be set only by external decisions, but also by what our connections to one another and our common belief in our mission make possible. And so connections will be the theme that I expand on today. Now more than ever, we must remain dedicated to advancing the work in which we believe together. Please stay informed by bookmarking the federal policies page on my website. And you can also learn more about some of the initiatives that I'll mention today on the website. I welcome your feedback and your participation in these and many other important projects that are happening all across the university, especially those led by the Faculty Senate, ASUW, on the Seattle, Bothell, and Tacoma campuses, and GPSS. The value of public higher education is reflected in our studies, our work, our passions, and our contributions, past, current, and future. In whatever role you have at the University of Washington, you contribute to the public good. We're a partnership, a connection with the governments and the residents of the state of Washington and our nation. We were created and we exist to link education, research, and patient care to one another and to the economic and social prosperity and security of our state and nation. And time and again, our federal government has turned to us as an engine of opportunity by expanding access to higher education, and so has our state. The Washington College Grant brings college within reach for academically talented, low to middle income state residents, supporting 13,700 students last year. The Husky Promise fills the gap left when the Pell and Washington College grants fall short, guaranteeing full tuition and fees for more than 8,000 eligible students from Washington each year. In total, nearly 2/3 of our undergraduates receive financial aid, and as a result, 71% of them graduate with no known debt, and the rest graduate owing about $20,000 on average, which is below the national average. We're working with our many external partners to protect this support and to reduce the financial barriers to a UW education, to ensure access for Washington residents who choose this path to their future. Interest in a UW education is not surprisingly at an all-time high. We're fully enrolled in educating more Washington residents than ever before, especially in high-demand STEM degrees. And with additional state support, we'd love to increase access for Washington residents. After all, 73% of all new UW undergraduates this year are Washington residents. And across all years, UW students come from all 39 counties in Washington. 41% of all bachelor's degrees awarded in the state are earned at the University of Washington, and 1 in 10 workers in the state of Washington are UW alumni. We're truly the university for Washington, as President Kelsey often describes us. But beyond access to majors that prepare our students for excellent jobs and fuel our economy, I'm really moved by the stories of students Huskies experience. They show how connections can change perspectives and enrich lives, much like my conversation with Ennis did for me. Just a few examples from recent conversations I've had with students. Devin took a class with John Heron on birds because, by their telling, they didn't really like animals. And now they find joy walking across the Seattle campus because they can pick out the vocalization of a merlin. Ron, an engineering student, discovered an interest in design after a guest lecture from Rebecca Cummins on photography in one of his classes. Ruthu sought me out after a lecture to tell me about how much of an impact Ed Taylor's class on dialogue, disagreement, and democracy had on her ability to engage with challenging topics. And Jonah told me about how Liberty Bracken and the Student Athlete Academic Services team have created a sense of family away from home to support his academic success. As these stories show, bringing students to the UW is just the beginning of our work. All across the university, faculty and staff are evolving our work to expand access and success in these opportunities to our students. Casey Self in biology and the Faculty Council on Teaching and Learning led a multi-year effort to articulate the components of quality teaching. Becca Price in the School of Interdisciplinary Arts and Sciences at UW-Bothell is leading an effort to collate common learning outcomes for UW degrees. And Ted Poor in music is exploring ways to infuse creativity into interdisciplinary opportunities for students, both in and out of the classroom. Many faculty and staff members, including those in student life, UW-IT, finance, planning, and budgeting, are partnering with us to align capacity and demand in our majors, improve digital accessibility, and pilot alternative testing support for our students. This is the evolution of our mission in action. Our educational mission is substantial, but it alone doesn't define the contributions we make to our communities. To fulfill our mandate of advancing the public good, our impact and its visibility has to expand out from our educational core. According to a recent poll, 71% of Washington residents responding believe the state is better off because of the University of Washington. That's a good thing. However, only 33% say they or their families are better off because of the UW. And most, 57% to be exact, say we have little or no impact on them or their families at all. This is a connection that we have an opportunity and a responsibility to strengthen. In reality, our state's economy is strengthened by the nearly $21 billion in economic activity contributed by the UW, including $1 in every 32 in the state's economy, and nearly 112,000 jobs supported or sustained by the university as the state's fifth largest employer. A key component of the academic impact is the $1.52 billion in federally sponsored research last year alone, which represents another connection between the UW and the U.S. government. These grants and contracts are awarded to the University of Washington through a merit-based process, and they advance projects that align with the national priorities as defined by congressional allocations to agencies such as the NIH that oversee the selection process. Robust support for academic research from the federal government began more than 75 years ago. And those investments have created the most successful R&D system in the entire world because they funded not only timely projects, but also the infrastructure to support them. Any reduction in direct federal research leaves meritorious projects and US-based research innovations unrealized. And any reduction in indirect costs has the same effect because the infrastructure that has been built over decades will no longer be available to support current projects, let alone those in the future. Make no mistake, these reduction proposals are dangerous, especially for the NIH. It will block the development and deployment of life-saving treatments and dismantle our global competitiveness in emerging technologies, not just today, but for decades to come. As Winston Churchill once said, to build may have to be the slow and laborious task of years. To destroy can be the thoughtless act of a single day. The impact of the UW research enterprise extends far beyond the economy. It drives discovery and innovation that improves the health of Washingtonians through more than 2.5 million outpatient visits last year alone and over 1,000 active interventional clinical trials at UW-Medicine and the Fred Hutch. These programs expand access to leading-edge treatments to our communities first. Central to the success of our research enterprise is its comprehensive excellence. From public affairs to physics, education to engineering, library and information sciences to business, the UW has more than 70 top 25 programs, including 35 in the top 10. The most accomplished researchers are here together, and they're combining their expertise not only to find solutions to the most intractable problems facing our society today, but also to develop innovations that improve the quality of our lives. I often hear that the UW has drawn and kept world-class faculty because of this network of expertise, but also because of our culture of collaboration. To share a few examples. Kai-E Young in the School of Engineering and Technology at UW-Tacoma pairs her expertise in computer science with biostatisticians at the Fred Hutch and the Seattle campus, including Ali Sojei, to understand the function of every human gene and the consequences of inactivating them, which is a common cause of disease. Hala Anabi in the iSchool and Michelle Martin in the College of Education integrated their work in inclusive learning and youth services to create the Autism Ready's Library Toolkit to empower librarians and library staff with early literacy training and programming materials to serve families with autistic children nationwide. Kate Starburn in Human-Centered Design and Engineering, who gave the Distinguished Faculty Lecture earlier this week and knocked it out of the park, I'll say. Co-founded the Center for an Informed Public, along with Jevin West and Chris Coward in the iSchool, and Ryan Kalo in the School of Law. Kate has become the leading academic and public voice on one of our most pressing and timely societal issues, the spread of misinformation and disinformation. And David Baker, currently working with more than 300 scientists all across the UW and more than 100 research groups worldwide, won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry this fall for computational protein design. David's called the university an incredibly collaborative place and said, "I've never felt during the whole time I've been here that there were really any boundaries at the university. I had the freedom here to pursue the science as it developed." His work has already led to more than 100 patents and new approaches to treatments for cancer, celiac disease, and autoinflammatory disease, as well as vaccine and drug development. And he's far from done. David's sights are set on bold ideas for treating chronic pain and neurodegenerative disease, reducing side effects with targeted therapeutics, and capturing solar energy, all enabled by the connections he's made throughout many years to bring his vision to life. And while recognition is not our motivation, it does shine a spotlight on the importance of work that can be taken for granted as it's developed over generations. So when we hear about honors and awards and prizes for UW faculty, 8 Nobels and counting, 204 members of the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine, 104 members of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, 20 MacArthur Fellows, and 31 Guggenheims, to name just a few. See them as the outcome of boundless opportunities created at the UW for many to have a positive impact in the world, and something that's worthy of the public partnership and investment. Faculty and staff are evolving our research mission through service too. Maria Huffman in engineering and Andrew Opes in immunology are co-chairing a shared facilities task force to identify cross-cutting needs and opportunities to support the high-impact research that these facilities enable. Vice President of UWIT, Andreas Bowman, is leading a collaboration among the Office of Research, Finance, Planning, and Budgeting in UWIT to improve grants management, including award setup and modifications, sub-award management, and reporting to address backlogs and also improve efficiencies moving forward. Cecilia Aragon in Human-Centered Design and Engineering, Heather Hill in the Evans School, and Emma Spiro in the iSchool are developing resources for faculty interested in commercializing their discoveries, participating in community-engaged research, or those who have been subject to intimidation and harassment based on their research, respectively. Faculty helping one another. For all of our contributions through our educational and research missions, it's really our dedication to the public good that defines our success as a public research university. We can see evidence of this dedication through connection as well. In the $22.2 million in charitable donations from our faculty, staff, and students, in their 1.5 million hours of volunteer service, in the more than 1,700 students enrolled in community-based courses, in the integration of community engagement through all aspects of our mission. This year, the university is preparing to renew our Carnegie classification for community engagement. This is a tri-campus effort, and each campus will develop their own assessment and submit them. But nearly 50 faculty and staff, led by Jen Davison, are working together to capture the connection across the tri-campus system that is such a strength for our university, and to anchor this work in equitable and mutually beneficial co-creation. A key connection of our partnerships is with the state of Washington around healthcare. We're truly thankful to our state legislators for their investments during the last legislative cycle. That support helps offset some of the $836 million in uncompensated healthcare UW-Medicine delivered across the state in 2023 alone. And it also helps us to expand access to dental care in rural communities through the School of Dentistry's RIDE program. Your investments are paying off in healthier lives and also in lowering future healthcare costs for Washington residents. President Kelsey and I also launched the Strategic Initiatives Office earlier this year to support large-scale, multidisciplinary initiatives to pursue transformative, positive impact on society's biggest challenges. We took lessons from the highly successful presidential initiative on population health. And a key function of this office is to connect experts, both within the university and external to it, to shape these emerging opportunities. The goals are to leverage the strengths and assets of the University of Washington, to create credentials for student engagement in these initiatives, and to ensure a positive impact on our own campuses as well. There are currently 4 emerging areas at different stages of development. And in Day, Dean of the iSchool, and Andreas Bowman, Vice President for UWIT, led a task force on institutional strategy for AI, which included more than 75 members working in 5 different groups. More than 2,300 members of our campus communities provided feedback on the task force report through a survey, and 7 town halls were held. Jody Sanford, Dean of the Evans School, and Ed Taylor, Vice Provost and Dean of Undergraduate Academic Affairs, and a team of 30 faculty, staff, and students engaged in a participatory and democratic process to imagine a role for the UW in improving civic health and democratic institutions, beginning with Washington Communities First. This initiative integrated a tri-campus next-gen civic leaders program for students and built a democracy test kitchen to support community leaders tackling issues anywhere from community health to housing. Mia Chuan, Dean of the College of Education, and Mike Spencer, Dean of the School of Social Work, have convened 4 conversations with the youth mental health community in the Rainier Valley and faculty to jointly develop a plan of action for youth mental health and well-being, including community-engaged research, cross-disciplinary teaching, and other activities. And finally, Maya Tolstoy, Dean of the College of the Environment, and Frank Hodge, Dean of the Foster School of Business, held a series of lightning talks across the university and are now leading a university-wide task force to develop a strategic framework on climate action and adaptation. To illustrate the power of these connections, I've invited 2 researchers today to talk not only about their work in the climate initiative, but also about how the UW supports and empowers them to connect students, researchers, faculty, and community members to co-create solutions. Alex Gagnon is an associate professor in oceanography and co-founder of Banu Carbon, which is developing carbon removal technology powered by light to radically reduce the cost of carbon capture. And Dan Schwartz is a professor in chemical engineering and the director of the UW Clean Energy Institute, founded in 2013 with support from the state to accelerate adoption of a scalable and equitable clean energy future that will improve the health and economy of our state, nation, and the world. Alex, will you please start?
Thank you, Provost Serio, for inviting me, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk today about carbon removal, which is a climate technology that, if successfully scaled and paired with steep emission reductions, can help us avoid the worst impacts of climate change. I want to share today how technology being developed right here on the University of Washington is helping us meet this pressing need for carbon removal technology. And I want to share a little bit about the journey that my co-founder and I have been on to become faculty entrepreneurs. So my primary role at the University of Washington is as faculty in oceanography, where for the past decade, like other faculty, I've been focused on teaching and leading a research group and supporting and serving the community. As a chemist and oceanographer, I focus on how the connections between carbon dioxide and ocean chemistry and climate. We study how the past ocean is related to past climate so we can better predict the climate of the future. And we get to work with really cool tools, from mass spectrometers to submarines, from numerical methods and machine learning to aquariums. And we get to go to some pretty cool places, pretty warm places too, which is relevant this time of year. I feel exceptionally lucky to be part of the University of Washington School of Oceanography. And in the Pacific Northwest, I feel like we tend to be overly modest. And I'm trying to work on this, especially for things that matter. And this matters. The School of Oceanography here at the University of Washington has been ranked the #1 or #2 program in oceanography in the world for the last 7 years in a row. And that's pretty impressive. And I'd be the first to sort of say that some rankings are a little bit subjective and don't capture the complete picture. But what I can say with conviction is that these rankings and other accolades really represent the incredible students we have at the University of Washington, the creativity and transformative science that my colleagues make, and the relevance of our mission. And there's no need to be modest about that. We have some of the best programs in the world in oceanography, in atmospheric and climate science, in fisheries, in earth science, and other environmental programs right here in the College of the Environment at the University of Washington. And in the simplest of terms, what this cutting-edge research is doing is trying to figure out how the world works. In a time of big changes to the Earth and to climate, it's exceptionally important to have these fundamental insights into how the world works so that we can predict and plan for climate change, so that we can adapt and mitigate, so that we can come up with climate solutions, and really importantly, evaluate the impact of those climate solutions and the effectiveness of those solutions. Lasting and equitable change and equitable solutions have to be based on a true fundamental understanding of how the world works. Reality matters. And importantly, this fundamental work can also be the sparks of innovative new approaches to solve these problems. And I want to share an example from my own research and from research of colleagues. So during research that we were conducting in the tropical Pacific, designed to measure the impacts of ocean acidification on coral reefs, my co-founder, Professor Julian Sachs, and I were challenged to engineer an experimental system that could pull carbon dioxide in and out of water on a reef. And this was work that was supported by a private gift from the Seeley family, a longtime friend and supporter of the University of Washington. And so we had both scientific purposes that we were working on, but we also were trying to build an innovative engineering apparatus that could help us to do this, because we were moving carbon dioxide in and out of water to make these tests on a reef at a much larger scale than you would typically do. And importantly, on an island, energy is really precious. And so we were having to do this in a really low energy way. And so, inspired in part by this work, we came up with a really efficient way to pull carbon dioxide in and out of water. It turns out that the same constraints and the same sort of scientific challenges that you had to do to be able to do this work on an island help prepare us to sort of think and engage with the challenges that you have to do to scale up carbon removal at a global scale and to make it commercially viable. And developing carbon removal techniques are so important because every viable plan to keep global temperatures below dangerous limits right now involves not only steep emission reductions, but also a billion to billions of tons of carbon dioxide removal per year starting in the 2030s. And there's a pretty big gap between that pressing need for carbon removal and existing solutions. Existing solutions, there's been an incredible amount of creativity and work in this space, especially recently, but existing solutions are costly, energy intensive, and importantly, they're about 10,000 times, if you sum up the amount of global capacity right now, they're at least 10,000 times short of where we need to be. So this is an incredible technical challenge, an incredible scaling challenge. So, recognizing this challenge and inspired by our work on tropical reefs, it's a great place to get good ideas, my co-founder and I have been developing new carbon removal technology. At Banyu Carbon, we're developing a simple, energy-efficient process for removing carbon dioxide from seawater that's powered by sunlight. We use a photochemical reaction to extract carbon dioxide from seawater. The sunlight-triggered molecule, small organic molecule at the heart of our process, that's called a reversible photoacid, is kept separate from seawater. It doesn't involve rare earth elements or toxic metals or any metals for that case, and it can be used over and over again. And so using this light-triggered molecule that pushes carbon dioxide into and out of water, depending upon its illumination, we built a process to extract carbon dioxide and turn it into an easily measured stream of gas. And then this carbon dioxide that's extracted can either be geologically sequestered, permanently removed from the climate system, or used as a feedstock for green chemistry. And in fact, one of our investors is a major airline, because the carbon dioxide that we hope to produce at scale is one of the major feedstocks that needs to go in for making synthetic fuels that, if properly scaled, could help decarbonize long-haul flights. So in the simplest of terms, our process takes carbon dioxide-rich water that's absorbed a lot of the emissions of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, naturally does that, takes that as an input and uses sunlight and extracts carbon dioxide, and then produces a decarbonized low carbon dioxide stream of water that can be returned back to the ocean, where it then can pull more carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Importantly, we don't add anything to water. We're just removing carbon dioxide, the root cause of climate change, and helping humans clean up after our mess. So my co-founder and I, after experiments we'd done in the lab and a bunch of modeling, were excited about this new process. We wanted to take it out of the lab, scale up and bring it to market, but we didn't have a whole lot of experience with this. So supported by CoMotion, UW's commercialization program, and with the gracious support of UW leadership, we formed a company 3 years ago. It's been a steep learning curve, but since then we've raised $8.5 million in investments and secured a first set of customers through a pre-purchase contract for carbon removal that's supported by a consortia of major tech companies. And a few weeks ago we were even on the front page of the Seattle Times. Our company is located right here in CoMotion Labs. That's just in Fluke Hall. And while we're still a pretty modest-sized startup, we're only 9 people right now. We've doubled our size in the last 6 months, and we're hoping to continue to grow. And we're creating high-quality jobs right here in Washington State to help tackle real global problems. So we have a simple, low-energy approach for carbon removal, and we have a ton of momentum, and I'm super excited about the contributions that we can make to slow climate change. But I don't want to make it sound like, the challenge of carbon removal or climate change has been completely solved. The scales that we and other people trying to do carbon removal have to get to are really large. This is a challenge like doing the Apollo Moonshot program at the same time as the Interstate Highway program, because we have to develop new technologies at a really rapid scale and deploy them widely very quickly. And importantly, unlike the highway infrastructure of the 1950s, we need to do this in a way that supports communities rather than divides them, where the communities that are most impacted by climate change can feel the benefits of new technologies like this. And there can be real benefits. If carbon removal is scaled to the scale that it needs to be to have a climate impact, it's projected to result in $100 billion to $1 trillion per year new market that could really drive economic growth. And the US, and especially Washington, are really well positioned to become leaders in this new field. Indeed, while carbon removal is a global challenge, it's also a Washington story on both sides of the Cascades. Carbon technology startups from around the world are flocking to Washington, from Squim to Moses Lake. And this is because of a really incredible combination of some of the greenest electricity in the world, together with an incredibly well-educated workforce and really promising opportunities for storage throughout the state. Also some of the biggest names and major buyers in carbon removal, either headquartered in Washington or have major operations like Microsoft, Amazon, and Boeing. Washington is also a major leader, the world leader in marine approaches to carbon dioxide. Companies like ours and a host of others, together with the University of Washington and our really important partners at federal labs like NOAA and the Department of Energy, make our region a center of excellence for understanding the connections between climate, the ocean, and carbon. And this is no accident. Washington State's leadership in recognizing the problem of ocean acidification and trying to develop solutions to address this problem built a level of scientific excellence and a trained workforce that's focused on marine carbon that's unparalleled in the world. And that is directly translated to our leadership in marine carbon. Carbon removal is a global problem with a Washington solution. So I'm really extremely excited about the role that Washington, that the state and the University of Washington can play in innovating, evaluating, and deploying carbon removal and other climate technologies. And I also hope that I was able to share a story today about taking science out of the lab and into the market, and how this journey really fits squarely within the university's mission of innovation and impact, and how it's one more way that universities can have a really important and high impact, positive impact on communities and on our planet. So thank you. And with that, I'd like to bring up Professor Dan Schwartz.
Thanks so much, Alex, and for everybody in attendance. This Monday, I was at the Tulalip Reservation with a number of students working on a project, and what we heard about was their preparations for the windstorm and the way they were bringing portable generators out to their most vulnerable populations, because power outages are not just an inconvenience. They can be a life-threatening issue. Alex reminded us, and that trip on Monday reminds us, that energy and clean energy is critical to well-being and to economic prosperity. So with that, I just want to recognize the Provost for her sustained support of community engagement and reiterate her message. Look at the UW Tri-Campus website on community engagement. There's a lot of great stuff there. I also want to acknowledge the Provost for her efforts navigating what have to be the most turbulent waters in federal circumstances that I could imagine. Today, my story is a little bit more placid waters, and that is the enduring and unwavering commitment of Washington citizens to building a more equitable clean energy future, and the ways that the Clean Energy Institute has mobilized our students and partners in communities to support the state of Washington. Since 2021, our state's been guided by a clean energy strategy that centers on equity for communities that have been overburdened and vulnerable to fossil emissions. But it's not just a strategy. We are taking climate action. The Climate Commitment Act established a statewide cap on carbon emissions and a marketplace to buy allowances. We at the University of Washington buy these allowances as well. Those allowances, engineers and their PowerPoints. Anyway, those allowances by design provide at least 35% of the funds going to communities that have been underserved and overburdened by fossil emissions, with at least 10% for tribal nations. Now, the definition of vulnerable populations in the Climate Commitment Act was the result of scholarship by my colleagues, Esther Min and her advisor, Edmund Sato. And I just love this example. I'm so inspired when I see scholarship that is awesome training, publications, and societal impact. So thank you so much for your work. Washington voters reaffirmed their commitment to the Climate Commitment Act in November. I do have a pause for applause. Okay, and so I just want to say that means hundreds of millions of dollars going into these vulnerable communities. So despite these funding opportunities, not every community has a clean energy plan or knows or even a goal or an implementation. And that's where the Clean Energy Institute's Community Capstones and Clean Energy program comes into play. So in 2022, the state provided the Clean Energy Institute with the funds to enable us to engage with communities through something we call the Community Engagement Testbed. This is a series of programs that let us bring the power of the University of Washington to the implementation of state policy. Now in our third year of doing community capstones and clean energy, we're connecting UW seniors with local communities and tribes to co-develop clean energy goals and pathways and the systems that are tailored to meet those goals. Over a 6-month co-design project, our engineering seniors work closely with a community liaison and their partners to explore several sorts of key questions. How deploying clean energy infrastructure, things like solar panels and batteries, microgrids, and electric heat pumps, how can those help a community meet their goals around resiliency, around cost reduction, and around reducing emissions? We worked through some of the technology trade-offs that are needed to balance the community's resiliency goals, their energy reduction, economic price reduction goals, and emission goals. And finally, we answer the critical question, how big of a grant do you need to accomplish your goals? You know, most people wouldn't be able to answer those kinds of questions. And what would be the long-term financial payback from that grant in terms of savings that could be put back into the community? So the photo here is me at a pitch event trying to get students interested in these community capstones. At this event, there were 52 other projects being offered to students. I had 3, 52 other projects that were from, the Boeings and big companies as well as small companies and department projects to get seniors involved. And I'm happy to say community capstones are popular. This is a screenshot of the tool that the College of Engineering uses to match students to projects. And I show my 3 projects up there. And we had 8 slots available for each of the 3 projects, and we had between 160 and 186 students that wanted those projects. So it's popular, and I'm really grateful for the kinds of attention that this has gotten from students. I also am grateful that the state of Washington supports a lot of staff at the Clean Energy Institute, so we can bring more technical expertise into our projects than I, Professor Dan Schwartz, could ever possibly do. So that lets us tackle different kinds of problems than any professor typically in a group could do. So you all know our students are fabulous, right? Yes, and so they work. I get to work really closely with them in these projects, and I cherish it. But they also share some of the reasons why they pick these projects, and sometimes it's geographic preferences. Vanessa, let's just see, next click. Vanessa started her educational journey at Peninsula College on the Olympic Peninsula. As an international student, she felt welcomed by her community as she attended Peninsula College. She just wanted to go back. So she joined a project with Jamestown S'Klallam Tribe, working on a resiliency center that could combine solar plus storage plus their generators to make their community and social services building more resilient to outages. One of the critical sort of co-design discoveries in the process that we had was really how important maintaining their food bank in that building was during the worst of the possible outages imaginable. And so that becomes part of the design goal. The student presentation shown on the right at the Northwest Tribal Clean Energy Summit in 2023 garnered a lot of interest, and we got new partners from that presentation. Sometimes students tell me they're attracted to the unique professional development experience of a community capstone. So those of you who do community-based scholarship recognize just the richness that community liaisons bring into the educational environment. This is Maria Battaiola standing behind some of my students, and she's chair of Beacon Hill Council of Seattle, and she's also co-chair of the state's Environmental Justice Council. And Maria is an award-winning multicultural awareness educator, and so she generously shares her expertise with our students. And she has a vision for Beacon Hill, and that is that every vulnerable person has a spot to go on an extreme heat day or an extreme smoke day where they're comfortable. So we work with a whole diversity of multicultural community centers and other things within the Beacon Hill community. So the culminating event each year for the Clean Energy Institute and our community engagement work is called our annual Clean Energy Community Showcase. It was inaugurated last year through the support of McKinstry. And we really see these community capstone experiences and the whole set of programs within our community engagement as a win-win and a win for the state of Washington. Win number one, our students are gaining a unique set of experiences, and it's engineers working with others, learning how to work across all kinds of different communities and people. Win number two is that communities build capacity to participate in these hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Climate Commitment Act funding. Win number three is the state gets more communities that are further along on their clean energy journey towards the energy transition so they can participate. Moreover, to my eye, community capstones and clean energy have revealed an alignment between the pull of student interest, the push of Washington state policy, and the hugely vacated space the federal government is moving out of today. This is really a unique time in the state of Washington, a unique time for the state, or for the University of Washington, and a unique opportunity for leadership by us all. I really want to see us grab this opportunity and take climate action and climate adaptation, take that to the next level. So with that, I thank you all for the chance to talk, and I would like to invite the Provost back up.
This is exactly what I'm talking about, right? What an amazing examples of the power of this institution to bring together people, connect to our communities, use our expertise to make the world a better place. Thank you, Dan and Alex, for sharing your stories of connection with us. The poet and former UW faculty member Theodore Rethke once said that the world needs more people who specialize in the impossible. At the UW, we are a community of people who make the impossible possible. The first generation students who with their families put their trust and hope in the power of a college degree. The staff who see the potential in our students that they may not even recognize themselves and encourage and guide them to find and fulfill their dreams. The researchers who dedicate their careers to pursuing ideas that few may understand, but many will unknowingly benefit from. The clinicians who explore every possible solution in their patients' best interests. For me, the only thing that is impossible at the University of Washington is the abandonment of our impactful and life-changing work. Together, we can find the path forward now and position ourselves for strength beyond this time by innovating within our sphere of control and evolving our mission. There is much public good left to do, and we have the character to find a way to do it. So let's start writing that essay together today. But before I close, I also want to acknowledge an important connection that we all share to our amazing president, Anna Marie Cossé. Her leadership is defined by the power of connection to communities, both within our campuses and outside. And her connection to us creates the trust that anchors us during times of turmoil. I'm so thankful for my connection to her in the front row seat that it gives me into real leadership in action. As she finishes her final year as our president and we establish a new connection to our next president, Robert Jones, the UW couldn't be in a stronger position to navigate this time. And I'm grateful to her. And I'm grateful to all of you. Thank you again for spending your time with me this morning. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Provost Serio. We do have some time for questions. I'll begin with a selection of questions that were submitted by members of the UW community prior to today's town hall. Some of these may have been edited for length. If you would like to ask Provost Serio a question now, please do email provost@uw.edu. While we won't have time during today's session to get to all of the questions, the Provost team will respond individually to each questioner if they're not covered today. We have, as you might expect, received a number of questions regarding federal issues, including federal funding. Some of those are about specific programs, such as iTech. Others are broader questions. And so I'll start with one of those broader questions. What funding is at risk in the new U.S. presidential administration?
Thank you. I'm really surprised to get this question. The reality is really all federal programs are in the mix here. And I think that that's the reality of the situation we are right now. I know you've been hearing a lot about support for research, nationally funded research, but I also think financial aid is something that we need to be concerned about. To me, those are the financial resources, but the real impact is going to be on lost opportunity. When you think about this partnership, the connection that I talk about, that expands and extends the prosperity and security of the nation. That's really what's at risk for me in these conversations. nonpartisan National Science Board has recently said that China is surpassing the U.S. in creation of STEM talent and publications and innovations. And this is not the time for us as a nation to be pulling back from a model that we know is successful and impactful. And that includes the education of our students in all disciplines across the university. I think it's important for us to make clear that we are willing and able and continually working on assessing and improving the way that we do work to be more efficient. We are, as a public institution, stewards of public resources. That's core to who we are, and that's important to what we do. But the whole scale, thoughtless cuts that are being proposed are not the way to achieve efficiency. They're the way to really harm our society today and long into the future. So that's something we need to tell our stories. We need to tell the impact that we can have in the world, in the partnership we play with the governments at all scales to make the world a better place together.
Turning to a specific area, there's a question here on National Institutes of Health funding, and specifically the indirect costs. The new U.S. presidential administration has already cut NIH funding, and the 15% cap on indirect research costs is a death blow to the federally sponsored research at the UW. What strategies are UW leaders considering to offset this? How will the university shift funding sources? And when will you share these plans with those directly impacted and with faculty, staff, and students more broadly?
Yeah, this is something that I can tell. I mentioned that, there's planning happening and it's not always visible. We're constantly planning around this. As I mentioned in remarks, our research enterprise is absolutely vital to the work that we do at the university, our impact in the world, the education of our students. And I know that we're all aligned on the importance of this work. I think there are multiple ways in which we are pursuing this. I'm really grateful, especially to our congressional delegation for their advocacy and the work that they're doing to try to deal with this in the federal government. They've been really terrific partners. We're also working closely with our higher ed peers, both through the AAU and the Big Ten, about advocacy and education about what these impacts are and really what those resources support and how they're used. And when appropriate, I'm sure you've all seen in the news, we've been working with our state attorney general's office to pursue legal options as well. And the other thing I would say is I know our community in Seattle, we're so fortunate to be in this state and in this region that they really support the work that we do at the university, and that's something that we're actively in conversation about. But at the same time, I have to be realistic and acknowledge that the research enterprise is a partnership with the federal government, and if that partner withdraws, there will be real impacts at the university. And it's important for us not to get ahead of ourselves. I mentioned all the things that we're doing, and they're in constant motion. I'm sure you read about them in the newspaper and through the communications we share at the university. So this isn't about timing as much as impact. We can't get ahead of ourselves. We have to wait and not bet against ourselves. We have to wait until we have clarity. And then that's when we'll act. We need to think about individual or disparate impacts across the university and then holistically what those impacts will be. I'm so grateful to the deans for their work. They're helping me work through various scenarios and contingency planning. And I really want us to approach this. I know it is anxiety provoking and for all of us. But there will be opportunities for us. They may be different than the ones that we have, and we have to be flexible in pursuing all those things that come forward.
Related topic in terms of being a federal issue, question here. The attacks on diversity, equity, and inclusion threaten to undo all the gains made over the past decade. What can we do about this at the UW? And with so much pressure to dismantle DEI initiatives, will the UW have to fall in line lest we jeopardize our federal funding?
Thanks for that. This is something that's on all of our minds as well. As I said, I want to be clear, this is core to our mission. We don't believe as an institution, even though there's a message out there, that access and opportunity and diversity are incompatible with excellent. We believe they are the same. And with that belief, we are compliant with the law, and we will continue to be so. But what that means for me is really about supporting our students. This university, higher ed in general, cannot be a pass-through. We admit academically talented students that come from different backgrounds, and we have to add value to those experiences to bridge that gap between their experiences and their ability so everyone can be successful. You know, if I can speak from my own experience as a first-generation student, I started college, I didn't know what research was, and I found out by accident, and it changed my life. That is the space where universities can add value, to bridge that gap between experience and ability. And that is not illegal, and it is not incompatible with the values of this institution. And so my advice to everyone, I mentioned about, you know, whatever role you're in the university, there's places for you to act. Focus on the work. We are here to support the success of our students and our faculty and our staff, and we will always do that.
I want to go to one more question on federal-related topics. This one came in during your talk. What advice would you give to UW students who are considering changing their academic path, whether it be their major, continuing on to graduate study, et cetera, due to the turbulence in their field of study caused by the recent executive orders?
Thanks. And this is the lost opportunity that I was talking about. You know, these pressures are creating churn in the system, absolutely. But I believe, because I believe in what we do, that we will end up in a better place when all of this settles. We can't opt out of a generation of student education. That'll have devastating impacts for our world, for the state, for our nation. I have to believe, I get up every day believing that this is important. As a kid, I was taught that this country is a land of opportunity. And I believe that each one of our students should have that opportunity to pursue their passion. That is how we advance a just and informed and compassionate society, by allowing students and all of us to pursue our talents and make contributions to the world based on that. And I'm all in, and I want you to be there with me.
We've gone a little bit past 11, so we're going to go to our last question. Again, if your question wasn't addressed, the Provost office team will get back to you. We heard previously today about climate initiatives and decarbonization. This one is about decarbonization at the UW. While the UW has a plan to decarbonize the power plant, how will you fund that transition? How will you address, prioritize, and fund other decarbonization using UW resources? And how can students productively involve themselves in the process through advocacy or fundraising?
Great, thank you for that. As you know, our two experts here today talked a bit about this, and Dan specifically mentioned the recommitment by the voters of the state of Washington in the Climate Commitment Act. We're thrilled to continue to partner with the state on that. We have a request in for about $300 million this year to work on our own infrastructure to the state. We have a long-term strategic plan to move to 100% clean energy, and the power plant accounts for about 93% of our greenhouse gas emissions, so that's a top priority. But along the way, we are also, and a shout out to UW facilities here, are developing strategies through all of our work to address our carbon footprint, and that includes through our facilities renewal program. Whenever we are renovating buildings on campus, we're looking at heating and cooling systems and how we can reduce energy use and decarbonize those buildings through the renovation process. We're also doing other things like expanding bike lockers and making composting easier and purchasing more food from local sources. So these are all the places where I think students can really engage in your day-to-day work, in your advocacy as residents of the state of Washington, if you are one. And also working through ASUW in Seattle, Bothell and Tacoma, and GPSS, who really share these goals with all of us. It's going to take all of us together and in partnership with our communities.
Thank you, Provost Serio. Our time today has come to an end, and I want to thank all of you, both here in person and online, for joining us for this conversation. For those of you here in attendance, we invite you to a reception in Alder Commons, which is just through the doors at the back of the auditorium. Thank you all for attending. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.
Thank you.